All right.
Now it's gonna come the awkward silence.
No, because we just had that.
Webcast.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, everybody. If you are here, if you're watching the recording right now, also, be careful what you're sharing. Ashley, we are live.
I see that. I got it.
We can't get rid of the recording, and so
It's there forever.
it's there forever.
This is look. This is why we can't have nice things. All right.
Yeah.
Also, I
Ashley
didn't
should
show
bring up,
anyone
like-
we were hitting the button, so my bad.
Ashley should bring up like kitten wars, and we should like by committee decide which is the cutest kitten. We can make that the pre-show banner today.
So
I'm
if
not
you're watching the recording, just real
Cassie
quick,
win.
if you're watching, just fast forward 36 minutes if you want to. If not, you can go ahead and watch pre-show banter. What is pre-show banter? It's where we show up early because you show up early, you show up early because we show up early. It's been a vicious cycle for the last 2 or 3 years. And so you can fast forward if you want to, if you're watching the recording. If not, you just got to sit through this for the next 36 minutes. So
Yeah.
thanks for being here.
Why did we do this? It's a heater.
All right.
It was all cats and Christmas decorations.
Ashley, if you could do me a favor, go up to the sharing and where it says stop showing screen. Go ahead and hit that stop button. That
There
way,
we
all
go.
of our cameras and we can play Family Feud or something.
No,
thanks.
okay.
Perfect.
Here's something I've wondered. They don't put us the same. Like we can't play Family Squares.
No.
I'm hoping whenever we get into like Restream and Zoom, because
Mm-hmm.
I would love to play Hollywood Squares,
Mhm.
like just like this, where we could have audience members play and ask us questions and actually do the full Hollywood Squares thing, because it would be really cool.
I think that's a live stream idea for. Remember when you called me yesterday and was like, "Hey, what can we do?" And I was like, "Like this feels like one of those things we can do with that."
It probably is. Add it to the book.
Yes.
It's like Jason joined and he had 150 crazy ideas, and we never thought we'd get through all of them, but here we are.
Here we are.
Quickly getting to the. Oh shit!
I know
love
this is
your
not a
hard hat.
kid-friendly show.
Thank you. Yeah.
There we go.
Actually was the hard hat I used at my last job when I would do ICS work. So it usually hangs like up here somewhere.
Yeah,
As just as a reminder. I thought it seemed appropriate to pull it down.
yeah. I don't want to remind you, but it could be a little bigger.
Yeah. All right.
So this reminds me when I was in the army and all my helmets were too big. Like I would just like, I'm gonna die, right? Like this thing doesn't fit. I'm going to die. I'm like, oh, it's just to keep your brain intact for when stuff happens. I was like, thanks.
I can say actually,
that's
as a
good.
fact, like this hard hat has probably prevented at least 3 concussions in my life.
But not
Yeah,
the
like
fourth.
can you show us like the nicks?
Well, I mean, you can kind of see there's like one right here. It's like a deep scratch. That was actually from
Yeah,
like
there
a
it is.
steel beam.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
What exactly did you do before we hired you?
A lot of things.
It's actually just a construction worker. You know, the people who just wave the signs, you know, so that like you can go like, you know, around the road. Yeah, that's what he did.
From slow to go.
Yeah, you flip the sign over, you know.
Yeah, I got fired from
You
that
know what?
job. I couldn't figure it out. Oh wait, I probably should have said that on here.
You really are an example of if you just believe it, you can do it, you know.
You can do
Yeah.
it, right?
Okay.
Who would have thought that
See.
the flag person in a construction zone could be like an on-ramp into cybersecurity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Black Hills Information Security, apparently.
Well, you take the pay what you can training. That
Break
can
it
lead
down.
to all places.
You took that training. That's what happened, and then you took the
But like,
on-ramp, constructing a new life.
So thanks for sending us the resumes over of your company, John. I really appreciate it. Can we talk about Noah?
Yeah. No, we cannot talk about Noah.
Oh, like,
Well, that was fun. Thanks everybody for showing up today.
all right, that was great. That was awesome. Hey, I got something for the people that are here early. Just give me a second.
Ooh. Also joining us today, we have Ashley Knowles and Ashley Van Hoesen. Is that right? Like Hoesen? No?
You know, close enough.
Okay. They are joining us for the very first time for BHIS Research Banter. Is that correct?
I think so.
I think so.
All right.
We only hire Ashleys to be pen testers.
Yeah, it's a rule.
We got Ashley K and Ashley Prime here with us today. So
Ashley squared.
what I have in my hands here, and this is all crackly and not working right. This is the very first printout of Backdoors and Breaches.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, whenever they were on sheets,
Mhm.
and we printed them out on stock paper here,
Mhm.
and we play tested it.
Huh.
Kent and Jordan. And I'm thinking that we might make this a prize
Mhm.
somewhat at Stack and Fest.
100%.
That's a good idea.
Was it going to be
We're
an
gonna have to start
autograph?
up the
prize?
BHIS museum.
Yeah.
I'll give
Oh,
tours.
I could print out another set and just say that that's it. It'd be like, this is actually a recreation of it, historically accurate recreation. But yeah, this is the first Backdoors and Breaches. And I actually broke it up in procedure cards and the actual attack cards themselves. So
Awesome.
while I was cleaning things up, I found that and I thought you guys like to see it.
That's really cool.
The first edition.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is
Edition.
beta 001 right here. So,
Mm.
Back
It'd
when we
be
had
even
no
better if
idea.
you signed it, John.
yeah, I
Mhm.
could sign it.
Each one. Each card.
Each one.
Each card.
And then they go up on eBay and they sell each one separately.
Have you seen the decks of cards for sale on eBay?
Okay.
Antiques Roadshow 50 years from now. It's like, so what you actually have here is this is actually Backdoors and Breaches. This was actually marketing propaganda from a security company back in the like 2018, 2019 timeframe. And if you look closely, you'll see that this is actually a maze. And the person would be like, oh, go good. Yeah. So how much do you think it's worth? Absolutely nothing. No one gives a shit.
What you got here is priceless.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
This is a real memory. We're all going to hold on to this one.
Tune in after the commercial break for a stuffed deer.
Where's the stuffed deer?
No, just Antique Roadshow. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it kept the theme going.
It was like,
Don, did you see it
you
on
went way
eBay?
too far. You pushed it too far. No.
Sorry. Sorry. I'll leave now.
It was funny right up into the stuffed deer thing.
I will be selling my beard on eBay once I shave it off, in case anyone is interested.
Wow,
that's
just
gross.
a bag of beard hair.
Right.
Really, this,
Bag
you know
of
what?
beard hair.
That's awesome.
We're gonna need
Ben
to
comes
cut
in
down
at
here.
bag of beard hair. Like he just rolls in. He's like, what the? And I'm
I
selling.
heard we're selling beard hair.
Oh, yeah, this
I
is
said yes to the wrong job opportunity is what I did.
Oh, Discord is recommending, Jason, that you sell it as an NFT.
NFT.
I think
Oh,
we
yes.
should. I think
Yeah,
this must
absolutely.
happen.
Also, I think the NFT idea was for the Backdoors and Breaches, but it just happened to hit
But it
right when we were talking about a bag of beard hair.
We can
Yeah,
do them
I don't think it was
together.
for your beard. I don't think anyone wants that NFT.
No one wants Backdoors and Breaches. They want the NFT for the beard. So
Beard.
Jason,
Wow.
can I show everyone the picture from yesterday, or is that going to?
You can do anything you want. Deb.
hey, Deb, whatever he says, I can overrule. Yes.
Okay,
Sure,
good.
sure,
Well, I have
sure.
2 different shots. I won't share the one that someone photoshopped, but this
Feel
is.
free to do whatever you want,
Feel
Deb.
free to do whatever you want. All right. There you go.
John never says no to me. Why would I say no to you?
30 seconds later, John regretted his decision.
You don't know what
Little
you
did he know what was about to happen.
do this. All right. All right. I'm working on it.
We're waiting.
Themselves.
It's like the first time ever you can go to webinar.
Also, for everyone that's here right now, this is not the webcast. The webcast will begin in 28 minutes. You're here for what's called pre-show banter. We got Ben Burkhardt, Ralph May, Noah Heckman, Cassie Kipple, Ashley Knowles, John Strand, Jason Blanchard, Deb Wigley, Ashley Van Schuzen, and Ryan the Shootist. So, yeah.
And Deb is ready.
And has posted it.
Yes,
now.
I know. That's when he gets it all.
Oh, you put it in Discord. So how about I do this? How about I make myself the presenter, bring up Discord, and then we can make it room.
Oh, I thought you were just
Like
gonna
she's
do it
making-
again. I
she's
thought you were just
making-
gonna fluff it.
It's making Jason
I
do it.
could.
It's like having him dig his own grave.
How deep should it be? Little deeper. Little deeper.
Just keep
Another
going.
shovel.
Keep
Oh my God.
Wow.
It's so fantastic.
Yeah, the closer you get, the weirder it looks.
It's so sad. And so they were talking about how he looks like a billy goat, and we were like, Jason, billy goat, that's your real name.
Yeah.
And
Captain Scott, gone for life.
Wow.
Wow.
You're welcome, everybody.
This meme is definitely, this is NFT worthy here. though. This is worthy of an NFT.
Jason the Gruff.
Mr. Tumnus vibes.
It's too bad we're not doing a Secret Santa. That would be an awesome framed picture.
To give to someone, like I give it to someone, like here you go. Here's your
I don't mean to spoil it. I'm totally gonna do that and send it to somebody. Just heads up.
Like someone who doesn't even
And
know
we're
Jason,
gonna auction it
just
off
give
as
it
an
to them.
NFT.
Yeah. It could be you.
So, well, Discord is live, so just a reminder, if you post anything that is terrible, and I can deem it to be so,
Like that.
you will be banned for life. Like Deb is about to be. Let me just go over here.
Hi, everyone.
There we go.
Oh,
Permaban. Kick and block.
All right, you can do all I do on Discord by yourself then. That's fine.
And she's unbanned.
Oh.
Hi, welcome back.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome back.
The daggers are out.
Well, that was fun.
It was a threat right up into the point where it wasn't. It's like those people that get fired and their boss calls them back and they're like, so that thing that you did for us, could you come and help us do that thing that you did for us before we fired you? And it's like, yes,
Yes.
for $300 an hour, because that's
Mhm.
how capitalism works.
I actually legitimately left a job at one point, and then like 2 weeks after I had left, like during that whole last 2 weeks, my manager refused to talk to me. They were just mad at me or whatever. And then like 2 weeks later, they call me and they're like, yeah, so that box you made a while back that did that thing, how do we fix that? And I'm like, well, that sounds like a consulting gig to me.
So I had something similar happen. Whenever I worked at Accenture at the Department of Interior, and this is a long time ago, so I think that we're well past it being a problem. I set up a Nessus scanning server for them, and the entire team had the password for the Nessus server to log into the web interface, and I gave the password for root on the Nessus server to the person that was running the team at the time. And I was teaching at SANS in Denver like 5-6 years later, and one of the people that worked in that job after I left came up to me and he's like, hey, I got a question for you. We're still scanning with that Nessus box that you built, but no one knows what the root password is, so we can update it. Do you know what the root password is? And I'm like, well, I wrote it down. I'm like, please tell me, dear God, it's not this. And they're like, oh, that got us in. Thank you. Their scanning server hadn't been updated in 5 years, and they were still, because they didn't know the password for it, and they were afraid to update it or do anything because they were afraid it was going to break it, because apparently the boss that kind of took over was like paranoid to do anything at all. And they're like, well, that Nessus scan that ran last month like worked and it didn't crash anything. Let's just do that again and again and again.
So what you're saying is that if Nessus would have scanned itself, it would have been like, no, this box is riddled with vulnerabilities. You need to fix it.
It did. It did scan itself multiple times. And I think the finding that it gave was, please kill me.
I think what John's saying is that all the scans for the last 5 years weren't good scans.
They were awesome.
Oh no, there's no new findings, nothing. Everything's good. Actually, they hadn't found anything in 5 years. That's how good.
Nothing of any. Yeah, it's all good. Everything's fine.
All good. Everything's fine.
I have a serious question for you, and this is based on your active defense cyber deception class.
Go for it.
What happens when an employee implements cyber deception and like just makes everything all booby trapped, and then they leave or get fired, and all that cyber deception is just left behind for the new employees to come find?
Have you seen Home Alone?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot like that.
Okay.
So no, usually if you implement cyber deception, like that employee leaves, that should be integrated into your alerting infrastructure, and it should be part of your security policies. That should be documented. So in that situation, the problem isn't the deception per se, as the overall documentation and change management procedures of that organization. That would be the problem, more so than anything else. Because people are like, where's the punchline? Nope, that's it. That's it. It should be more in line with making sure that you have proper change management and change control rather than cyber deception itself.
Yeah, because I've always thought about that, like the person who's like, and this account's a fake account, and this is that, and this is like network, it's just like shadow network, and then all of a sudden like a new employee comes in like, what is all this?
What is this? So.
John, Deb and I haven't gotten a chance to ask you this question, so we're going to ask you publicly.
Sure.
I like it.
With that class that you're teaching at 4 o'clock in the morning Mountain Time, like at the beginning of January,
yeah,
Deb and I are going to be doing our thing on that, right?
You can, if you want to. I mean, you're welcome and encouraged to show up.
I mean, we will.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
If we have to.
We will.
Yeah.
At hour 4 when normal people wake up at 10. But no, the reason why we're doing that is because we want to reach out to the people in Europe, and there's a ton of people that want to take our classes, and they try so hard to show up and take the class, and like I've got to sleep. So we're going to see how many people actually register for that, and just basically see how it goes. I'm hoping it goes well. I don't have any problem getting up at 4 a.m. and teaching. That's not a problem. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. That's perfectly fine.
That's fine. We found out together on Twitter. We were like, well, why are you telling us?
Yeah, you found out on Twitter. That's how I know, folks. That's how I notify people of things of Black Hills Information Security, through tweets.
You didn't even tag us. So.
Like, Ralph, congratulations, you're hired. It's like, John, this is Twitter. You did that publicly. Yes, exactly. It's like,
well, it's worse when you're getting rid of someone. So.
Hired anybody over Twitter. Yeah.
Noah.
I guess I just need to subscribe to John's Twitter to find out my employment status from now on.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't follow John on Twitter, you're going to want to do that.
Yeah, I might hire you, right? So, how do I get a job at Black Hills Information Security? Follow John on Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, it could be that, like, you know, in like the Monday meeting, we're like, oh, this person works here now. I'm like, oh, what do they do? And like, they don't know, but John hired them on Twitter.
Yeah, they used to run the flag at a construction site, but now we're running stock.
What a callback for Noah.
They used to have me test these helmets.
Yeah, I was a helmet tester. Make
Come
sure
here,
they
Noah.
passed QA.
Just a reminder, this is not the webcast. Webcast will begin in 19 minutes. And today it's on ransomware and ICS. Not just ransomware, not just ICS, but bringing the two together, like what, peanut butter and jelly. So.
Peanut butter and jelly.
I think it's kind of the opposite. We're trying to not bring the two together.
Thanks for clarifying now. That would have been helpful.
Yeah.
20 seconds ago.
I should probably go change the description then. I was
we don't.
Like water and wood. There you go.
I like that. Change the description as all of the ransomware authors that are tuned in right now are like, oh, it's not. Oh, crap. I thought it was the opposite of that.
Oh, man.
Yet, I will not be on this webcast.
Company is lies. All lies.
The whole company is lies.
So everyone at Discord, thanks for being here today. Like Michael Slack and Need More Energy. I think that's what that is. Wombat.
We got the BSD Bandit on. That's pretty awesome. I wonder if that's the BSD Bandit from Twitter that I follow and I like so much.
It is.
Same.
Yeah.
You want to know me?
1 million grams of coffee energy all the time. Yeah.
All the time.
He's like full of energy, like naturally full of it. I don't think he's actually drinking that much coffee. So.
No, he was at
Bandit is like, hi everybody, I don't need drugs. I am drugs. Let's go.
No, he's awesome. He's awesome.
Great. Remember we hung out with him at Wild West Hackenfest, Ralph?
We should
Remember
get him
hung
out
with
there.
him at Wild West Hackenfest?
Oh yeah, yeah. We've done Hack the Plan together. Actually, we were playing Call of Duty last night together.
Oh, nice.
I was gonna say, I was looking at Discord. According to Discord, you're still playing Call of Duty, which is impressive that you can attend a webcast and play Call of Duty at the same time.
That's like, hold on, guys. Hold on. All right, I'm back.
What has Discord ratted you out about today? So,
Yeah, exactly. Just playing. He doesn't stop. He's literally on a voice chat with me, and he's still playing.
still going.
What?
yeah.
Multitasking.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I am attending this webcast now.
Are you gonna box? Are
Unfortunately.
you gonna do the boxing?
Oh,
You
I
just need to
started.
paint it green though, because then you can put your face there.
There you go. Like then set up the green screen with a picture. Yeah, I like that. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I hate the idea. Like we've had some conversations about doing like full things in VR, and like the idea of me doing an avatar and teaching with that headset on for like even an hour horrifies me. But even more is imagining like 1,000 people with those on, all watching it at the same time.
Horrifying.
And my son
They
got
had-
so into that, I had to remove it from the house. Like
Mhm.
I find him the next day. He's like all pasty white, eyes are sunken. I'm like, did you sleep last night? I passed out at like 5, so I'm good. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, you're going cold turkey, buddy. So,
Yeah, give me that.
yeah. Are your kids getting into the Oculus or VR at all?
Mine is. She likes to fish. She just sits. She pulls up a chair in the kitchen, and she's like,
Real
You know,
weird.
it's funny. Everyone made fun of Star Wars boy, the guy with the thing where he's pretending that he had a lightsaber, and now everyone looks like that with an Oculus. They're all like,
Ridiculous. Yeah.
"Wow, you just brought Star Wars kid back to modern day 2021 and like made that massive correlation."
if you watch Google Trends, Star Wars boy just got a blip. You're like, what the hell is Star Wars boy?
Now my phone's gonna start showing me Star Wars kid videos because
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's
Google, because they're listening constantly. Like, he likes Star Wars. Would you like to go to Disneyland? No. Good Google.
What is hacking gonna look like though? I mean, you're just gonna be like swiping, like I don't know, just like a visible keyboard. Like I don't. it's
so
just-
there's
Actually-
a Logitech keyboard that you can pair with your Oculus, and you can then see the keyboard in like it just appears. Your hands kind of go shadowy. So
Yeah,
Maybe
because it has a camera in it,
mhm.
and they can
Mhm.
actually sense certain things. You can actually, like, I was thinking for like security operations center analysts, like you can have like screen.
Yeah, it's actually less GPU intensive. If you have a GPU that can do VR, you can actually go with like the Windows virtual experience, I think is what it's called or something. And you can actually have like a full like multi-desktop environment set up in this virtual world. It's actually pretty common. They went in like Japan and stuff, they went away from dual monitors and just went to everyone has VR headsets on. And then they can have like 6 monitors in there. But it all runs on the same GPU feed.
And they're cherry flavored, and you can get them out of vending machines.
True.
They're weird like that there.
Well, the Netflix app, when I put that on and did the VR for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, like, because you're in someone else's living room at that point, and you're watching their 75-inch screen TV, and you're like,
Watching their
why
screen.
did I just buy a new TV?
Jason's got the B&E package with his VR.
You're in someone else's house and someone breaks in mid-movie. This is my house.
Like a virtual gun and shoot at the intruder.
Yeah. All of a sudden, Flow Rider shows up. Welcome to my house. So weird. The older people are now like, who's Flow Rider?
They
I saw
actually have
someone
gloves.
tweeting about hacking in VR last month, I think. I think it was like Scalsec or someone had like a POC for Kerberoasting in VR where you're kind of clicking on users and endpoints and stuff.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, and you can like see the attack maps kind of like branch out in 3D.
It'd be kind of cool to like see all the computers as like objects, and you can just kind of like go to them, pick them up, and just be like, oh, I'm taking over this.
What about that one?
Mm.
Ooh, like you could go like this is gonna start a whole new like Ocean's 11 hacking scene at some point where they model the entire building and then like they virtually place themselves in the building
Yeah, and then they hack it. The thing, okay, so the juxtaposition of this is very interesting. We're talking about like VR and like all of these crazy games and all of this stuff, and Ashley's getting ready to present on, technologies from like 1992. It's like, it blows my mind still to this day with as far as technology's coming. It's like, we got this GPU that can go do like 26 billion cracks or cipher checks per second, and we have VR, and they're like, but we got this controller over here that runs the HVAC for the system. Can't update that. that's the bridge that's too far.
And then sometimes the the control interfaces for these things look like they're like an Excel document with GIFs in it for some reason.
Yeah, it's like taking VR and comparing it to like a TI-81 calculator. It's like I could play Snake.
Everyone's like, great. I'm just convinced that, thousands of years from now, aliens will find us and be like, what did they actually value? Did they secure their critical infrastructure and the stuff that kept things like water and everything? No. Where did they put all their money? Porn and video games. It's like, oh my God, this was a society of junkies?
This is why it was easy to take them over.
It's so funny. I was actually talking to one of my friends this morning about the movie Idiocracy. And I was just like, man, I didn't know when I first watched that when I was like a kid that it was actually a documentary. I had no idea.
It's not.
I watched it for the first time like 15 years ago, or when it first came out. I don't remember when it first came out. It was a while ago. And it's just you think about current events and what's happened in the last 5-ish years, and you're just like, it's coming to fruition.
And even Hardee's is like one step away from "F you, I'm eating." Like, I can't remember what one of their logos or one of their catchphrases was, but it was like a hair away from that. Like eat like you mean it, or hate your friends and eat your burgers. I don't know. It was just like, you're getting really close to this. Or was it Carl's Jr.?
Costco, we love you.
That's, you know what? I want to get a job at Costco
just for that.
Just to get hired. Welcome to Costco. I love you. You want a hug? Okay.
As a reminder, this is not the webcast. The webcast will begin in 10 minutes. If you're watching this, hey, thanks for being here. There's 225 others of you doing so. We are Black Hills Information Security. We work at Black Hills Information Security, and this is what we do prior to a webcast. And the reason why is because we learned a long time ago it's just boring to be on a different webcast at a different company, and they're just total dead silent until all of a sudden, hello, welcome to today's webcast with Ashley Van Hoesen.
Today we'll be talking about ICS and OT technologies and how we can bring these things together with the rest of your network. No, scratch that. It's the opposite of that. Who wrote this? Why am I reading it?
Or you have like Creative Commons, like elevator background music to like placate.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the elevator background. And I wish that they would be honest. I wish a lot of webcasts would be honest. It's like, welcome to the webcast. All of your contact information will be sold to the sponsor of this webcast. They will be contacting you 16 times over the next week. They will call you. They will email you. They will send you proof of life of next of kin until you buy their product. And all these vendors like, why don't webcasts work? They're stupid. I don't know.
Well, they're really dumb.
Something killed the golden goose.
We will at some point tell you that we, do services. It will take about 10 seconds, and then that will be it. So we'll tell you.
Yeah, we will do that.
But that's it. Instead of the 10 minutes of content and 50-minute commercial that happens at the end. That's not right.
Sounds terrible.
Oh wait, I was supposed to have more than 10 minutes of content?
Oh God.
Okay, just ramble. It works for me.
That's what we've been doing.
I just ramble for like hours, and people are like, "Oh my God, he's an InfoSec thought leader." It's like, no, he's just rambling.
This happens in December for some reason. I don't know why. So it's fine. We'll just roll with it.
This doesn't feel like it. Honestly, doesn't feel like the holidays are coming up at all. I don't know about you guys, but like, it just. I don't know. I just think that I'm gonna wake up and kids are gonna be like, "It's Christmas," and I'm like, "It is."
We are in Atlanta ever since I moved to Florida.
That's how you felt constantly. Jason, he's ready.
There's no snow here, so it just doesn't feel like Christmas.
Yeah, we don't have snow either.
It's gonna be 60
70
on
degrees
Friday.
the other day. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm like, it's like 70 degrees outside. I'm like, I can't really get into Christmas. Like,
Screw it. I'm coming down to Colorado. CJ and Phil are on their way. I'm coming. We're just gonna hang out, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
like we'll do it. We'll do a Denver, Colorado beach party because this isn't working.
there's
I'll
no
fly.
beach here, but
We'll make one. We'll just find a bunch of
Yeah.
sand and we'll put it in the middle of like, what is it, the 15th Street Mall, like with all the hobos there. And we'll give beer to hobos because that's legal.
Yeah.
You can give beer to the hobos in the 15th Street Mall. The police frown upon it, but they can't stop you as long as you're carding them. Are you over 21? That's
Yeah. I used to actually work off the 15th Street Mall. So we walk down there all the time and go to the restaurants and stuff for lunch. But
the place is awesome. No, it's funny. My kids, we went to Amsterdam and we're walking around and my kids are like, it smells like Denver here. I'm like, well, it's actually. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Yeah, that's funny.
I do want to let Michael Slack know you're getting close to being banned on Discord. You mentioned something about doing a 24-hour pre-show banter.
Yeah, that'll get you. Oh, I'm banning him right now. I'm banning Michael and done.
Deb, right?
Delete all messages in the last 24 hours, please.
Yeah. I do like the Soul Asylum icon from the album and the horse they rode in on, which is a bit obscure, but that's cool. I like the band. Soul Asylum's good.
All right, everybody, we will begin in 5 minutes. If you were here early, thanks for being here early. If you wonder why we're talking early, this is called pre-show banter. We do it before every webcast. We have one webcast coming up next week. That'll be the last one for the year, and it's going to be on modern C2 and exfiltration techniques with Kyle Avery. So he's putting together
Oh my God.
a webcast on that.
Kyle, I broke all the EDRs again today, Avery. We should spend 5 minutes.
That's a fact.
We should spend 5 minutes though. We should talk about one of the things about this time of the year that is my favorite.
Oh, yes. It is the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge, created by
the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge.
Created by CounterHack and Ed Scotus and Josh Wright and all those people over there who are fantastic human beings who bring the whimsical and wonder to this time of year by creating the most epic holiday hack challenge of all time. And so we'll drop the link in here. John already did. We'll put it also in GoToWebinar. So if you're not on Discord, you can grab it from there.
And could I ask everybody, we're going to do a BHIS hug of death. Could I ask everybody, please go on Twitter and please go and just type in thank you to Ed Scotus. Because he puts this on for free and he's been doing it for free forever. And he's literally at Ed Scotus on Twitter. And I think it would be a good thing just because of all of the work that him and his team have put in. Just take a few moments, go onto Twitter and just say thank you at Ed Scotus. I think that would be a good thing because you know what, when you do stuff like that, you put it out there and it doesn't break and you hope it's working and it's kind of like screaming out into the void. And I think it's just up for us just to say thanks for making the holidays a little bit better for everybody in the InfoSec community. So please do that and just say thank you because he needs that. He's actually. So.
You had me curious there for a second. You're like, we're gonna do a hug of death. Everyone go to Twitter. I'm like, are you trying to hug of death Twitter right now?
No. We have, well, yes, we've hugged a death number of things, but we're trying to give the BHIS hug of death to Twitter. If we bring Twitter down,
like
mentioning
next week
Ed
we're gonna go
Scotus,
for Cloudflare or something. I don't know.
we could pull that off. There's bigger problems in this entire infrastructure. As somebody at Amazon right now is like, please don't say Amazon. Please don't say Amazon. Please don't say Amazon.
They already had a significant outage. Or a significant event is what they call it there. It's a significant event.
It's like the release of a new movie or something. Somebody was mentioning when Amazon goes down, it's InfoSec snow days. Amazon.
Actually, I'll give you presenter control again so you can go ahead and bring up your slides. We will start in 3 minutes, so this is the 3-minute warning. So as we get ready to get to the beginning of this thing, thank you so much for joining us for the pre-show banter. If you were here from the beginning when we hit the button 26 minutes or 36 minutes ago, thanks for hanging out with us. You might have just showed up early because of time zones, but we appreciate you being here.
We do. We do.
All right. What else? Anything else, John? You got some like pay what you can training? Oh, Deb. Yes.
Do you want to talk about the thing we're doing next week?
Yeah, so next Friday, Friday the 17th, if you're watching the recording, sorry it already passed, it's December 17th, 2021. So if you're watching the recording, sorry. But next Friday, we're trying an experiment. We're doing a meetup in Maryland in Halethorpe at a place called Heavy Seas Brewery at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And what we've seen is that there's thousands of you all over the country, all over the world. And like, if we can find a way to bring you together, then you get a chance to meet each other and we get a chance to meet you. And so next Friday, we're bringing, so far we've had about 50 people or so RSVP that they're coming. We have an open space at Heavy Seas Brewery so that people can get a chance to meet each other. We'll do a little bit of speed networking where we can meet each other. If we all do it, then it's not weird.
But we'll be there. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
But here's what we'd like. If you want us to come to your city, please put it in Discord or on GoToWebinar. If you want us to come to your city and do one of these meetups where we'll find the other people in that city who are in the InfoSec community, if we can, that know us, because either they signed up for the Prompt Zine or they bought something from the Spearfish General Store, we'll bring you together.
I
Save a
vote for
horse.
Chicago.
Hire a hacker. We're coming to your city.
All right, with that, we got 1 minute left. Which brewery? It's the Heavy Seas Brewery in Halethorpe, Maryland.
Halethorpe.
All right, Ashley, it's 1 o'clock. Everybody, if you are not going to be presenting, if you're not Ashley Van Hoesen, please go ahead and turn off your camera and your microphone. Please don't end the webinar for all. That would be absolutely terrible. And we will bring it up from now on every single time. So if you do that, you'll be memorable. Ashley, thanks for joining us today. I've already seen this presentation. I got a chance to see it at ICS conference in the beginning of November, where we were in a room with like 15 other people. It was like one of the first conferences back after the pandemic, and not that many people showed up, which was great. And also, you're like, so Ashley, thank you for doing this. I asked you if you could come back and do it for us in the BHIS community, and thanks for doing it. All right, everybody, if you have any questions at all, you can always ask in Discord or go to webinar. We have a team of people to help answer your questions, or we will save them to the end for when Ashley's done with the presentation. And with that, if you ever need a red team threat hunt, active SOC or anything like that, you know where to find us. Ashley, it's all yours.
All right. Good? Yeah. Hopefully we'll get through this and I won't have any kind of epic coughing fit. So kind of bear with me and we'll get going.
Yeah. All right, Ashley.
All right, perfect. So my name is Ashley Van Hoesen, and today we're going to be talking about ransomware and ICS. So just kind of a little bit about me. I am DHS ICS certified. I went up and they have a 1-week class up there. It's really great. It's an intensive class, and at the end you get to do a cool exercise, and it's really awesome, great learning experience. I have some pretty extensive work in ICS. I've worked in a lot of industries. I've done work with oil and gas companies. I've done work in the energy sector, manufacturing. Done stuff with rail systems, air systems, airplanes, and stuff like that. And I was a naval nuclear engineer. So that was pretty cool. Kind of getting to work in the nuclear aspect of it, working with nuclear reactors and stuff. So. First, I'm going to kind of go through like a little bit of an intro on industrial control systems. I don't know how many of you guys, have a large background in industrial control systems. So we'll kind of cover a little bit of some of the things that I'm talking about and kind of how they're different from IT. They're two systems that have to kind of work together, but they're very, very different from each other and kind of have to be handled a lot differently when you're talking security and things like that. So the operational technology industrial control system world is really recently, in the past like couple of years, has really seen an increase in threats and attacks. 2021 has been one of the most prolific years for ransomware and threats to industrial control systems. There's just been a heightened sense of need for our critical infrastructure to be protected this year. And I don't think that that's going to slow down. I think that these systems are very attractive targets, and they, you're talking technology that was developed in the 1970s, updated in the 1980s, from like analog to digital, and realistically security hasn't been thought of since then. So you're talking a lot of old protocols, a lot of old equipment, that it's difficult. It's difficult to update it. Some of this equipment still runs on outdated versions of Microsoft, and outdated versions of Linux, because they just can't be updated because the hardware itself hasn't been updated. So those are really attractive targets. And then we took all of this equipment and we're like, hey, let's connect it to the internet. That'd be a cool idea. And so now we're experiencing these issues that we've never seen before, because we connected something that really probably shouldn't have been, connected to the internet. Now it's out there. Now it's on the internet. So just kind of a little bit of like technical terms, kind of the difference between like OT and IT. So OT is operational technology. And it's kind of an overarching term for using hardware or software to control physical processes. So, when you're talking about a factory where you have a conveyor belt that's like set up for shipping boxes, right? So this conveyor belt is responsible for the box comes along, it weighs it, figures out how much it weighs, maybe it prints off a label, it puts the shipping label on there, and then it moves it off and it moves it onto a pallet to go off to, the distribution or wherever it's going to go. There's a little tiny, board that's controlling that process, right? And it's really simple, like logic based stuff. If box is on conveyor belt moves. If box goes through laser, conveyor belt pauses. If label goes on box, conveyor belt moves. It's very simple, logical things, and it's yes or no, on or off, kind of stuff. And a lot of times it's like there was no thought, right? Why does that need to be protected? So when we were developing these products, back in the 70s and 80s, there was no like thought behind, well, why does it matter if somebody can make the conveyor belt turn on and off? Well, I mean, at the time it was kind of like, well, it kind of doesn't. But now it's like, okay, well, what if somebody can make the conveyor belt go 70 miles an hour and shoot boxes like projectiles? That's not great. And there's that's kind of a silly example, right? But when you're talking things like pipelines and chemical processes and everything and stuff like that, I mean, I think earlier this year there was a kid in Florida who was like, hey, I wonder what would happen if I dumped all these chemicals into the water supply and wound up poisoning the water supply, because it was just like, hey, can I do this? Yeah, I can. And that was bad. They had to dump, they had to put in a whole lot of other chemicals to kind of counteract that, and then they had to retreat the water. And it was like a big process, right? Not only was it dangerous to the community, but it also cost the water plant a significant amount of money to be able to create safe drinking water for people. And these are things that are very, very possible of happening. I mean, a lot of times now we're just seeing ransomware where, okay, send us Bitcoins, we'll decrypt your stuff. And, yeah, I mean, that's almost kind of like the least bad thing that could happen, right? Okay, all we've done is encrypt your data. Yeah, you can't operate, but we're not damaging your stuff. We're not causing loss of life. We're not, damaging the community and stuff like that. And so, but those things, when you're talking OT environments, you're talking very, very dangerous things that could happen and very bad things that could happen. In IT, in the IT environment, it's and apparently this slide did not save an update, so we're gonna roll with that. But IT environment, that's your internal infrastructure, right? So that's that's your email, that's your databases, that's your workstations and stuff like that. Is it critical data? Sure. But is it detrimental to the point of we could have loss of life? Generally not usually. And so there's kind of a big difference between the way that IT has to be handled and the way that OT has to be handled. IT, you can apply software updates. Most of the time in IT, your stuff is patched pretty well, and there's no real issue to patching, right? It's like, okay, well, we applied this patch and now the database doesn't quite work right. Okay, well, let's roll it back and everything. In OT, it's like, we applied this patch and now this PLC doesn't work, and now it's not talking to the safety system, and now we have no idea whether or not the temperature of this boiler is okay or it's not, and that's not good. So there are so many more things that could go wrong in OT, and trying to have that IT OT convergence where we're working together is very difficult. IT staff have to understand how critical OT is, and OT staff have to understand how important security is, and bringing those two together is a big part of kind of what I'm trying to do. So let's talk a little bit about kind of industrial control system security architecture. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and I could probably talk for an hour easily on just security architecture and the reasons why it should be the way that it is. So this is kind of a it's kind of a modified model, loosely based on the Purdue model, kind of tying in a little bit of like zone and conduit, and ultimately just using micro segmentation. So with this model, you kind of have your enterprise zone. So that's your enterprise network. So your external facing network, and then your business network, your internal facing network. Which per the Purdue model, that would be layer 5 would be your external, and layer 4 would be your business network. Then you would have your DMZ. So this would be like your industrial DMZ. And you could have a DMZ between the enterprise network and the business network, but this is specifically an industrial DMZ. So this is what is separating your corporate facing, your enterprise zone, from anything that would be process control, anything that would be considered ICS. That would be your manufacturing zone and safety zone. Typically, ideally, this would be a separate domain in and of itself from your enterprise zone and from your manufacturing zone. And this is where you would put like your jump host, your file transfer host, things like that, data that needs to go from the business network to the OT network there doesn't need to be a direct connection to do that. So that's kind of where you would transfer all of those things. Then you would have your manufacturing zone. So you would have your site operations would be there, and then you would break down kind of the rest of the manufacturing zone into kind of, this is where like the micro segmentation and kind of the zone and conduit model comes in. You would break them down into these cell zones, and you would have these cell zones that would allow you to kind of really like take different processes and different pieces and not allow those things to talk to each other. So as an example, if you had you were doing manufacturing and you had multiple production lines. So let's say you have production line 1 and production line 2 and production line 3. Production line 1 would be its own separate zone. It would be its own separate network, right? So there would be firewall rules in place that would prevent production line 1 from talking to production line 2, and vice versa, right? And each of those would be separate, and those would be your cell zones. So each of those would be separate entities, and that prevents any kind of traversing across the network, right? So if for some reason, one of your production lines went down, you would have access to production line 2 or production line 3. So if production line 1 got hit with ransomware, there would be no traversing because of the way that network would be completely segmented from anything else, and you would still have production line 2 and production line 3 that you could do while production line 1 is offline and you're doing your forensic analysis. And then on top of that, you would have a completely separate zone for your safety equipment. So these are going to be your sensors and your triggers and your alarms that are completely separated from your process network, your SCADA network, your site operations in a completely different zone. And it would have connections obviously back into your process network, right? So you would have to, if you have a sensor for temperature that's going to trigger an alarm, well, you have to have that connected back into the process network, but you're going to go through the firewall to do that, and you're going to make sure that you have the connection in the direction that you need, right? So if it needs to pull data from that temperature sensor, then you only allow that data down to that particular sensor. By keeping your safety equipment separated, it really prevents an attacker from being able to go in and turn off those safety features, right? So if you had somebody who happened to be in production line 1, they have access into those systems. They can't necessarily get to the safety zone and the safety equipment to be able to turn off a temperature sensor that's going to trigger an alarm to be able to manipulate that PLC and cause something to happen, right? They may not be able to, they may not be trying to, necessarily destroy an entire plant, but if this was a if this was like a beer or something like that you're making, and you slightly increase the temperature during the fermentation process, well, that can make the beer bitter. They could just be ruining an entire batch of beer rather than trying to actually cause damage. But by separating out that safety equipment, that alarm is still going to trigger, and so you would kind of get notification of that, and it just makes it difficult for more changes to happen without people knowing it. So that is kind of my view of ICS security architecture and how it should be done correctly to ensure the best possible outcome for security. Now let's talk a little bit about how ransomware affects ICS. So we kind of have to talk a little bit about the most recent well-known attack that occurred on May 6th of this year. It affected Colonial Pipeline, and based on every other ransomware attack that we've seen in industrial control systems. It was considered the most disruptive attack that we've seen yet, and I don't think that that's going to stop. I think that that's just going to get worse. It kind of almost seems like a lot of these bad actor groups out there, they try to one up each other, right? It's like, oh, hey, look, we did this, well, we did this, well, we did this. And it's a game, and we can't play a game with our critical infrastructure. We've seen so many more things happen in critical infrastructure that nobody's necessarily said that they've been a direct attack, or there hasn't been ransomware involved particularly. Like a month and a half ago, Xfinity had a massive outage. And there's just been a lot of things like this, and it's hard, right, without knowing exactly what's going on in their systems from an outsider perspective. We don't know if that massive outage was a DDoS attack, or if it was something more going on. But if you took away internet from everybody in the world, like that's if you just took away internet in the United States, I mean, that is devastating to tons and tons of businesses. And it doesn't even have to be a super widespread thing. It could be localized into different cities and stuff like that. But that's part of our critical infrastructure. That's how we connect, and we have so many things connected to the internet now that's how we function a lot of things. So these are attacks that are not going to stop, and they're definitely getting worse. Just kind of to put in perspective of how much worse they're getting. In 2020, we had 1,112 ransomware victims, and this is just in the OT industrial control sectors. Just in so oil and gas, manufacturing, they're looking at all of those different sectors, but that's just in industrial control systems. There were that many ransomware victims in just the first half of 2021, and I would expect that shortly they would be compiling the numbers for the second half. The last that I looked at it, there were already another like 600 on top of this, and we hadn't even finished out the year. But just in the first half, we had 1,097. So in 6 months of this year, we had almost as many attacks as we did in all of last year. And that's really actually shocking to me, because last year it seemed like there were a lot more just attacks in general, right? The world shut down because of COVID, and nobody could go anywhere and nobody could do anything. And so it seemed to me like you had a whole bunch of really bored hackers stuck in their house with nothing else to do. So there was an overall increase, and for that to be even more prolific this year, as the world has kind of started to come back to some sense of normalcy, that means that they figured something out last year, and they're going to keep running with it. They figured out that it's easy. You could go to Shodan right now, and you could type in any singular industrial control device from a number of different companies, and you are going to find no less than 1,000 of them directly connected to the internet, with a public IP, just waiting to be attacked. They're connected directly to the internet, and that is awful. Those, and you never know like what exactly that's connected to, right? I mean, there could be a Siemens device or a Honeywell device or Allen Bradley, device sitting out there, and you don't know what that's connected to. Is that connected to a pipeline? Is that connected to a manufacturing plant? Is that connected to, you know, an electricity substation? Those are definitely definitely very scary things to be out there. And the problem is a lot of times people just don't know. They don't know that it's connected to the internet. And that's kind of another terrifying thing too, is that there are these things out there that are huge targets and nobody knows about them. Kind of just a little bit more like of kind of statistics on what, you know, what we're dealing with as far as groups that are responsible for these ransomware attacks in the industrial control system. So there's about 25 different groups out there that are tracked as APTs. They're responsible for more than 1,200 of the attacks. There's some like one-off groups out there that do it, but these are the primary. And out of those 25 groups, 5 of them are primarily responsible for the vast majority of the attacks. So these are kind of the groups that are responsible based on, you know, name based kind of on their particular malware that they use. So in the first half of 2021, we've seen an over 100% increase in ransomware attacks from 2020. And about 75% of those attacks originated from these 5 groups. So, you know, there's Conti, there's Avedon, there's REvil, there's DarkSide, and there's PSYA. The kind of funny thing is like Conti, you look and they just have a absolutely astronomical amount of ransomware attacks they're doing. But then you look at DarkSide, they actually have only been successful with less than 100 ransomware attacks. I think it was like 74. They had 74 successful attacks. Not all of those were you know, massive attacks, right? I mean, if somebody you know, somebody pays, you know, 0.1 Bitcoin, you know, that's the same as them paying like 100 Bitcoin. Because they were successful, and they don't even have to pay the ransom. They just have to actually get the malware into the environment and encrypt files for it to be considered a successful attack. But you know, DarkSide had one of the the worst attacks that we've ever seen, or at least most disruptive, right? So that's, you know, it doesn't have to be a large number for something to be devastating. You know, one time, all it takes is one time for something to devastate and then cause a literal, you know, waterfall effect to happen of other things that that really, you know, could devastate not just critical infrastructure, but our country. Let's see. I think there was one of the questions was, are these stats exclusively OT? Yes, they are. These are exclusively OT statistics that I got. I can look for the source. I have the source of where I pulled up this data. I can throw that in the Discord afterwards. How is the malware deployed? So these are the 3 most common attacks. So basically, all of those attacks that were successful were analyzed and kind of determined where, you know, what happened when they were triaging, right? So ransomware can find its way into an ICS network through a vast variety of sources. You know, it can start with a phishing attack that targets employees. You know, in that they could be trying to they could be trying to install malware, or they could be trying to gain access to credentials so that they can get remote access into an environment. Another common technique is for an attacker to compromise an industry website, and this is where we get into like kind of supply chain things, and talking about making sure that you're looking at your vendor updates, and you're taking the hashes and you're comparing them to make sure that these updates are exactly what you think, right? But they try to compromise an industry website and then implant malware there, so that everybody that goes there and is trying to load software from the site, then they deliver their malware instead of an actual firmware update. The other thing is being able to exploit like a VPN portal or other externally exposed IT infrastructure. That's something that happens a lot. There was a manufacturing plant in Italy earlier this year that was infiltrated through a vulnerable FortiGate VPN server. They exploited the CVE, they obtained credentials, and then they accessed a Windows system through a VPN. Then they used Mimikatz after that to get other credentials, and they were able to laterally move through the network until they got a domain admin account and compromised that. Then they used the domain admin privileges to disseminate Cobalt Strike and to get malware throughout the the system. Then once they had sufficient access, they deployed ransomware to the compromised host and propagated it throughout the network. And then what was so horrendous about this is, in addition to encrypting the files, the malware actually disabled the services to turn off the backups and remote maintenance. So they were able to disable the backups as well. And they had on-site backups, which was part of the problem. But not only did they encrypt their files, but they disrupted their backups, and it was an absolutely like devastating attack. So those are things that can happen. Those are things that happen all the time, and but those are the most common ways to that these groups are using to deploy that malware. Insider threats are definitely part of the problem, right? That's kind of it's kind of an interesting topic, right? Because there was, I think it might have been on Telegraph. There was actually a post that was made, and one of these ransomware groups was actually advertising on Telegraph, looking for insider threats. They were looking for anybody who was willing to take a piece of their malware into their company, and they would give them all of the instructions. They would walk them through everything that they needed to do, and then they would get part of the ransom as payment. And it was one of the first times like I've ever seen anything like that, where they were bold on a fairly public forum to be like, hey, yeah, we're looking for people, like we need help, and we want to get this, so we want to get this malware into an environment so badly that yeah, we're looking for people to help. So insider threats are definitely a big part of this. The attack in Italy and some of the other attacks were not insider threats. They were simply just bad hygiene, right? Not not creating a password policy that's strong enough, not properly decommissioning employee accounts that have left, or things like that, or even moved, right? Sometimes somebody will get a promotion or a demotion, or they'll just change, maybe they were working in marketing and they decided to go into accounting or something like that, but they still have access to all the marketing stuff that they did, because their permissions weren't taken away from marketing. We just added permissions for accounting, and so now they have extra permissions that they shouldn't have. So those types of things. Specifically, how does ransomware affect industrial control systems? So the impact on industries using ICS kind of depends on the target's nature of operation or the motivation of the cyber criminals that are pursuing the attack. Every effect that's listed here, can be felt by a target's internal and external clients, right? So operating system changes. They could go in and they could change a system or an operating system or an application that could produce unwanted or unpredictable results, right? So they could turn off antivirus, which would make it easier to be able to propagate malware into the environment. This could also affect the output of a threat actor's target, right? If they can't disable the antivirus, maybe they kind of change what they're going to do, right? Maybe they have a different piece of malware that they're going to use, like a bypass the antivirus or something like that. Changes in a programmable logic controller or a remote terminal unit, or any other type of controller that could be out there, can create a similar effect, right? It could lead to damaged equipment or facilities. It could also cause a process malfunction, and disabled controls over a process. So that's something. As far as in 2021, if there being any changes to controllers that we've seen, I think there might have been one overseas where they actually made a change to a controller, but that's not that's been like public knowledge, right? But it's it's stuff that we've seen in the past, right? If you just kind of look at kind of Stuxnet as like an example of that, right? The centrifuges were all damaged, and that was due to the malware that was there. So maybe not necessarily this year. This year's been really focused on Bitcoin based ransomware, right? We're going to decrypt, we're going to encrypt your files and we want money. But it's not completely out of the question. And I think it just depends on what type of group is doing that, right? So when you have financially motivated groups, you're a little bit less concerned over the fact that they're going to damage equipment because they realistically just want their money. But when you have nation state type things that are they're looking to be able to cause damage, right? They want to cause a power outage. They want to they want to cause a fuel shortage. They want to cause these issues, which then cause other economic issues for our country, or any country. Those are kind of the types of things where you have to be concerned about them making like controller changes or process changes. So information reporting, again, this is kind of a tag on to that, right? So by reporting different information. So various things like oil and gas, electric, things like that. They have reporting dashboards that they have to have, and they have to report certain information pretty consistently for regulatory things, right? Well, if there was a miscommunication in that information, it could lead to a whole process of things that would happen, to include if an energy company is reporting a load on the line that is different from what the load is supposed to be, and there's variances there, they could have to shut down that line to figure out what's going on, which could cause power outages, or have to go to backup power or something like that, and that's not great. So that's obviously something that could happen. And then the kind of the last thing is I mean, I think this is kind of my biggest fear in critical infrastructure, is tampering with safety controls. Preventing the proper operation of fail safes puts lives at risk. And that's kind of like that's one of my biggest fears, that there will be an attack that will be damaging and cause loss of life because somebody turned off the controls. So that's it's always really, really scary. So let's kind of talk a little bit about how to protect against ransomware, and kind of some of the things that we can do to kind of keep ourselves safe from it. So I think that you can't really you can't really kind of discount the cyber kill chain. I think there are many different types of ransomware, but they every ransomware attack tends to follow the same similar patterns, right? And I think you could say that for really any attack that's out there. Even as an attacker, when I'm going into an assessment, I have a particular set of steps that I follow to get to my end result, and I follow the same steps every time. And that's it's true of ransomware as well. There are patterns that are set, and we can kind of look at those patterns and see what's going on to know how we could stop that, right? And I think kind of one of the first steps is having an idea of like what information is out there publicly on the internet that doesn't require any interaction with your company at all, to be able to find, and that's important, right? So kind of pull this up so that way we can see the steps here. So what I'm talking about is reconnaissance. Where somebody could go and I know it's hard to you can't really control people's personal lives, right? You can't really say, hey, don't post stuff on the internet, right? Because people do it. You can't have policies in place that say don't post like work stuff like that. But you can't necessarily say to somebody, hey, don't say that you work at this job, because that's you can't really control what people are going to do, right? So but having reminders that hey, it's probably not a good idea to post that you work at this place, because then you're making yourself a target, right? And it's my friends kind of think this is a cool party trick because they know what I do for a living and stuff like that, and so we'll be out and they have like a new person come along or something like that, and they're like, hey, check out how much stuff she can find out about you on the internet in like 5 minutes. And it's like, because people they post everything on Facebook, they post it on Twitter, they post it on Instagram and whatever else, and they just put this information out there and they don't think about it, and they don't think about what a risk they could be to their company. So we do training and we do guidance and everything and stuff like that to make sure that they understand. But there's a lot of stuff that you can do as a company to make sure that you're not putting stuff out there publicly, right? If you have documentation, things like that, making sure that that's not out there, searchable on the internet with email addresses and those types of things that would set you up for a phishing campaign. There are definitely things that you can do of your own, to make sure that there is the least amount of information, right? Strip all the metadata off of any documents that you have to make public, so that you're not seeing, who made it and what their email address is. And now from that email address that I just got, I can look for anybody that works in the company, and I can architect my own email addresses to come up with a list of people for a phishing campaign. Those are things that you can do yourself to make sure that you're not putting out more information on the internet than is necessary. Weaponization. So kind of during this phase, the threat actor is preparing for the ransomware attack, gathering malicious software tools and techniques that they're going to use against the network. And then you have delivery and exploitation. So they've figured out, how they're going to carry out the attack, and then that's where they're going to deliver this. So, whether it's a malicious download, a phishing attack, a successful brute force attack, or a successful delivery of the malware to somebody, and now you have an insider threat that's going to go and plug this in, right? Exploitation, kind of obvious. It's where they're actually exploiting the network, and they're using previously identified vulnerabilities to gain access into the network, so that they can run whatever exploits that they want to do. So installation and command and control. So generally after they get a presence in the network, they're going to install their malicious code, or execute a fileless attack, to kind of gain that command and control. So once the network's compromised, the malware is running, then they can start establishing beacons in the network to talk back to their command and control server, so that they maintain that control. And then actions and objectives. Once they have their foothold, they can do whatever they want from there, right? So they could exfiltrate data. It could be corporate espionage. I think somebody asked a question earlier about like secret sauce and the different things that are kind of got that confidential information, right? So that's definitely something that's there to get. And then you have monetary gain. So trying to get the ransom from the company is another thing. I mean, you could even have somebody like for political gain, or a combination of these things that would be able to happen together. So kind of the way that you target these things is to kind of prepare and then mitigate. So prepare, you really want to do an environmental analysis to kind of determine what your critical processes are and what you have in your environment. And then mitigate is obviously applying the appropriate mitigation techniques to the environment. So in preparing, knowing what your critical infrastructure and the processes that rely on the IT environment, that could provide an attack path for the OT environment are very, very good. A huge problem in OT is that you have all these devices out there, And for the most part, some of them may be identified as assets, but there's a lot of like questions, right? There's a lot of questions on what traffic is happening, what devices are talking to what devices, and where that traffic's going. Is something in OT talking to IT, or is there is it just talking across in OT? And a lot of times there's very big questions on what those actual network interdependencies are and what is actually needed from IT to make OT function. Generally speaking, there's actually very little, but the thought is that there's so much more needed from IT for OT to function. Identifying a resiliency plan is very good. Making sure that there's a plan to continue critical processes running in case there's an IT incident. That's kind of something that a lot of companies fail to do. There's no plan for, okay, well, what if we have to shut down IT? And how do we keep OT running? So this is kind of something that happened in Colonial with the Colonial pipeline, is that even though the OT, they were not able to traverse into OT because they disconnected OT before that could happen. There was an IT process that could not continue, and therefore they could not continue OT processes because there was not a process in place to be able to continue those OT processes without the IT function. And that's tough. So if you can maintain your OT function without IT, that is huge. And then incident response and backups is another very big part. So most companies do not have a separate incident response plan for the OT environment. They just have an incident response plan for IT. So the IT environment, the way that you handle incident response there is very, very different than the way you handle incident response in OT. And those are having your IT plan work for OT is not something that is generally the best idea. How you restore backups in OT is very different than how you restore backups in IT. And having offsite backups is absolutely huge. Backup frequently, backup everything that's critical that could need to be restored. And then store those backups offsite is absolutely ideal. As far as mitigation, practice good cyber hygiene. That is huge. Implementing multi-factor authentication for OT access from IT is a very, very big thing, and something that I don't see done very frequently. Developing a plan for regular software updates. And I understand that sometimes that is very difficult in OT. You may only have certain windows where you can take equipment down to be able to update. There may not be updates available. But doing everything you can to make sure that your software is updated as frequently as possible is really, really huge. Network segmentation. Robust network segmentation between IT and OT networks is absolutely necessary. The concept of micro segmentation is realistically that you can't segment enough in OT. If you're like, oh, hey, I think we could put this into a separate network, but I don't really know if it necessarily needs to be there. It's probably more ideal to just put it in a separate network, because the the more you can keep everything separated, the harder, the more difficult time an attacker is going to have getting into those OT networks and being able to traverse and cause the damage, right? And then continuous monitoring, using threat hunting tactics and continuous monitoring software to be able to prevent those attacks from happening. And you know, kind of all of this is true of IT networks as well, that all of this should be done in IT networks as well. And you know, you kind of have to look at the steps, right? If you have a strong external, then you know then an attacker is going to be going to have a more difficult time getting into the internal. If you have a strong internal, then if even if an attacker got into the internal, yeah, maybe they can cause some damage, but they can't get into your OT environment. And so it's a process, right? It's kind of like building a castle. You have a strong outer wall, then you know people can't get into the castle. And then if the outer wall, you know, for some reason breaks down, then they're not getting into the actual like innerness of the castle, right? And we kind of have to build security the same way. And then just kind of like a little bit, this is kind of like a little bit of you know, threat hunting here, and talking about kind of how beacons work in in an environment, right? So you're looking for connection persistence, right? So any network traffic that would be consistently reaching out to an external source, that's a huge that's a huge red flag, right? And in OT, that's even something that's reaching out to an internal source that it shouldn't be reaching out to. Then you know, any kind of abnormal protocol behavior, right? So network traffic that's acting outside of its normal protocol behavior is definitely something that you would need to look at. And length of data, you know, looking at kind of 12 hours of data for that. So anything that's you know, connecting to weird stuff or acting weird in, you know, over 12 hours of time is definitely, you know, something that needs to be looked at, and probably a host that needs to be kind of assessed a little bit more. And overall, like kind of piecing all those things together and putting all that stuff together should really, you know, really help to strengthen an ICS environment and kind of create a pathway to move into the future with a stronger critical infrastructure. So that's all I have. I can kind of we can go through some questions now if we want.
Hola. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Ashley, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. First of all, thank you. Thank you for that. And then we'll get to the questions here. Before we move on, you are doing a training class because a couple of people have asked where they can get additional training for this. And I just want to let everyone know I dropped the link to this training class that you're developing, creating for anti-siphon training.
Yep.
Is available soon.
Yes. Yeah, I think the link is already up and working.
Yep. So I shared that link in case anybody wants to check it out. So if you do, Ashley has a whole, it's like a 16-hour class coming.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I think at the end of February.
Someone said feel better soon, Ashley, and I do want to thank you for doing the presentation today, even though you were sick. Every once in a while, I was like, do I need to jump in? Do I need to? No. All right, so we have a lot of people here. Let's see how many questions we can get to. Defense and I'm not sure. Do you have any favorite OT monitoring software vendors?
There is so there's kind of a bit of a shortage in technologies that are really specifically tailored to OT, right? So there are a lot of products out there that are tailored to IT that are being used in OT. And to be honest, I think that there are some good products out there. Overall, like I really have I've I think that that kind of, a little bit of like automated log, generating alerts and stuff like that is kind of really the best way to do it, because you know your environment the best. And making sure that you have like solid firewall rules and things like that. But it's almost one of those things where it has to be kind of a manual process with eyes on the screen, to rather than relying on a specific technology.
Yeah. Actually, before I ask you the next question, I just want to let everyone know that we are developing a Backdoors and Breaches ICS edition. So Backdoors and Breaches ICS specific deck to help teach IT/OT security. We're working with Dragos, so they're helping to supply a lot of the knowledge for the IT and OT. Ashley's going to help vet and go through make sure the gameplay works. But we're expecting it Q1 of 2022, maybe Q2 at the latest if we're having supply chain issues. So if you're looking for that. This question came up twice. Is VLAN segregation sufficient, or have physically isolated networks preferred, or have physically?
Perfect. No, that's actually a really good question, because I've gotten that question a lot, whether does it have to be physical isolation, or is dynamic or like virtual isolation sufficient? And my answer to that is realistically, I couldn't tell you the last time that I was actually like successful with like VLAN hopping. They really have put a lot of protections in that now. It's not impossible, but it's just not as frequent as it used to be. And so I really think that dynamic or virtually isolated networks are fine. It definitely limits some of the costs of being able to create the segments and be able to kind of get these things in place, because I know that IT OT budgets are not always infinite, and sometimes it's difficult to get money for security. So virtual segmentation is completely fine.
Okay. So what I'm going to do right now, it is 2 o'clock. Thank you so much. Ashley's not feeling 100%. So what we're going to do is about 5 more minutes of Q&A. So if you need to head out, thank you so much for being here. If you ever need a red team, threat hunt, pen test, or active SOC, you know where to find us. We're going to answer about 5 more questions worth of 5 more answers. Yeah, right. I'm okay. I use words. All right. Are there any focused good courses, books where you can get solidate some knowledge on ICS, like good books for ICS?
Yeah. Yes. Amazon is great. I personally, I use Safari books. There's a ton of really good books on there. There is I will compile a list together, and I will throw it into the Discord if that's okay.
Yeah.
But I can definitely do that. I have a link that I use that has a whole great list of books on there, and different things that are really, really good tools. So I can throw that into Discord, so you guys can have that information.
I think potentially the last question today is, do you have any recommendations for pen testing in OT?
Yeah. So pen testing in OT is kind of a tricky and kind of scary thing, right? There's a lot of passive stuff that has to happen. It's a lot of asking questions, a lot of understanding the security architecture, a lot of understanding how things work, and before any kind of like active testing. You never ever want to get into a situation where you have somebody asking you to actively, do exploits on PLCs that are running in a production environment without some kind of absolute guarantee that safety is not going to be compromised. So those are definitely like really scary things that can happen, and it takes a big level of care to make sure that you're testing in a safe manner.
Okay. All right, I think we have time for one more. Have you found attacks at the hypervisor level on the increase?
Not necessarily. There's been a lot of things that have happened at that kind of level 4 and moving towards level 3 level. But most of it's been IT attacks that have just affected OT, as opposed to them actually being able to traverse into OT. I think the concept of disconnect OT quickly is really something that that's kind of kept a lot of that from happening. But I think that we're going to start seeing more of that happening in the upcoming years.
All right, and you keep answering quickly, so we have time for one more. Any recommendations on how to chat with OT techs on security measures like installing AV onto machines connected to these systems?
Yeah, so a lot of that is I think explaining to them that it is a necessary it's a necessary part of something that, you know, is going to keep them safe, is really the kind of talk there, right? I know a lot of times I've gone to implement security measures into OT, and everybody in OT groans. They're like, oh, it's going to make it harder for us to do our job. You know, it's going to make this more difficult. I don't understand why we have to do this. And I think really just opening up the dialect and explaining why it has to be done and what accommodations are being made to make sure that it doesn't make their job so significantly more difficult, right? And you kind of have to have that compromise of can they still do their functions and listen to them on what they're saying to be able to perform the functions of their job, while at the same time making sure that you can put those safety measures into place. You know, I think that I think that that, you know, visualization is really kind of good. Something that they can see, right? If you can give them kind of a picture of what could happen, then they can see what would you know, what the real goals are, and how that, you know, you're trying to work together, you're not trying to work against them.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. As we wrap up today, I do want to highly recommend you to play in the Sands Holiday Hack Challenge created by Ed Scotus and his team over at CounterHack. It is a fantastic way to build your skills. A lot of times they have IoT devices, things, firmware, other things inside where you get a chance. It's not just about like this one aspect of security, it's all aspects of security. With that, Ashley, do you have any last, I don't want to say last words because that sounds like ominous. Do you have any final thoughts for today?
I don't know. Go forth and secure critical infrastructure.
Sounds good. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today on this Black Hills Information Security webcast. We have one more next week on things. I got nothing. So join us next week for our last webcast of 2021. And with that, we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. I'm ending the webcast.